Today on Motherish, we're talking about those wild, wonderful, and sometimes overwhelming toddler years. Our guest, Devon Kuntzman, is the original toddler expert behind Transforming Toddlerhood and now author of a brand new book by the same name. She's on a mission to prove that toddlerhood isn't terrible at all. It's transformational. We read the books, we bought the things. We thought we were ready. And then life took our plans and changed them. I'm Karen, I'm Victoria's mommy, and I work in tech.
And I'm Pamela. I have a baby boy named Ford, and I'm a journalist. And although we're both first-time working moms, we're actually pretty different.
And that's totally okay. Because we both agree that our most important work is raising our kids. We really need each other and can only get through this together. Welcome to Motherish Moments.
I love that word, transformational. We use that word so many times. I don't know, to justify a little bit of the chaos, but we definitely use it with a more positive tone and perspective when we were like really deep into the craziness.
Yeah, it's so crazy because I'm sitting here trying to think like momnesia, right? Like Victoria's 6, so I'm like, when was she a toddler? What year was that? But I'm sure Devon will bring us right back in real quick. Okay, Motherish moment. Are you ready? I have one.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so Victoria and I are working on her Halloween costume. So for those of you who don't know, huge deal for us. Loves Halloween. I love Halloween. Likes scary things. It's fantastic. So obviously, it's more than one costume because we need a school costume and then we need a nighttime trick-or-treating costume because she really wants to be something scary and the school doesn't allow scary things. So she goes, Mommy, okay, for school, I just want to be like K-pop demon hunters. I'll be Rumi, whatever, like whatever. I'm like, okay, that hair alone
Like
is
everybody
like a
else,
massive
right?
challenge.
Like everybody else.
Yeah, and also like the hair, it's a whole thing with the purple, with the huge braid, whatever. So I've been watching tutorials and stuff on TikTok. But the nighttime one, she wants to be a zombie bride.
Okay.
So we were looking it up because we have to research it together. And I was like, all of these zombie bride dresses, like they look kind of like regular. So we went to Goodwill. We bought a wedding dress, like somebody's wedding dress, size 2. But this size 2 bride must have been like, the dress was clearly like altered, so it was even smaller. But I looked at it and I was like, I think this is gonna fit her. So we bought the dress, took it home. She tried it on. The body fit perfectly, which was so crazy. The body fit perfectly, obviously very long. Obviously it had like space for boobs. So I bought one of those little like stitch guns. And I started cutting and like stitching it together. I cut the bottom and she goes, leave a little bit of a tail in the back. I'm like, okay. So I left a little bit longer of a train in the back for the dress. And then we took it outside and we had like red blood, like type paint, put on gloves and like put like hand blood marks all over it. Then I was like, okay, grab some mud and just like put mud all over it. So she put mud all over it. And now we have it outside in the sun, hoping it turns like yellow. And she will be putting on white spray in her hair. And she said that she wants pale white makeup, dark black eyes, and blood all over her face. That is my child.
She's committed.
That is my
For
child.
that bride listening, whoever your dress is, just
So sorry about cutting
divorce
your
somewhere.
wedding dress.
That's why
But
she
you
gave it away
donated
to
it.
Goodwill.
You donated it. So like,
It's getting some great use now for Halloween.
That's what we're doing.
I love that. I'm looking forward to. We love Halloween. We're
Yeah.
big Halloween people too. Okay, so my mother's moment. I shared a few during last recording that were great. Because again, this is like a very fun age where they have their. Oh well, part of one of my last mother's moments was we went to his parent-teacher conference, and right away she's like, "Oh my God, he has his mannerism, the dad's, but he looks like you." That's like, no, I think he looks like me, but like acts like Pamela. And we're like, no, I think it's the other way around. It's just funny how like at this age, like there's definitely a lot of genetics involved in like the stuff that he does and how he processes things and his like even like his sense of humor and like being silly and all that stuff. But there's also a big part where he's like developing his own persona, right?
Yeah.
So like everything great is funny how like we want to get credit for like, oh, that's he's great at reading, great at math.
She's like, that's me.
That's
Sign me up.
That's me.
Put my
Oh,
name
he's
on
being
it.
silly. Like, that's the dad, But then like there's things that I do find that are very unique to him, like, I don't know, just interesting. But Motherish moment, let me see. We're also getting ready for Halloween. We've changed his costume like 3 times. We're going with Travis Kelsey for school based on a petition by one of the moms who recruited my son to be her daughter's Travis. She will be Taylor. I already saw the outfit she's wearing.
Crazy.
I know, but then I mean, now that I'm into it, like, do I take it to the next level? Like, I wanted to cut like a billboard cut out and be like People magazine or like Vogue and be like wedding of the year and have them walk together. Like, how far do I take this, right? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
but I'm very excited. I pretend I was like, oh yeah, it was this other mom's idea, but deep inside I was like a little angry at myself that I didn't think of this. That I didn't think of
Are you
like
still room mom, by the way?
of
It's
course
so
room
much
mom,
work.
second year.
It's so much
I know.
work.
I know.
can't-
And I'm also I just volunteered to decorate our car, like the classroom
or
car.
treat or whatever.
Isn't that we do kind of just like a parade? So we kind of park the cars. I'm doing Coco as a theme for our
Whatever it
car.
is. It's so much work.
So yeah. So anyways, that was kind of like a blend of my mother's moment. Just it's a fun age. Nothing specific.
Okay.
But
All right.
why don't we have our guest Devon join us and share her mother's moment of the week?
Yes, well, we can keep it along the lines of the Halloween theme. So my little one's 3. So he doesn't really understand trick or treating yet. Like he's not really like looking forward to that because he doesn't really understand it, but he's super excited to dress up. And basically any costume we show him, he's excited about, and then he says that's what he's going to be. And so I had this cute costume of being him being a spider, and he wore it to the pumpkin patch and got all these pumpkins, and then he like arranged them all on our front porch, and was like posing with them, like having so much fun. And then my son also loves Cars movie, and then my husband saw an Instagram video of a kid dressed up like Lightning McQueen, and then their wonderful wagon as Mac, the trailer. Of course, he showed it to my son, and now my son, this is all he can talk about.
So cute. This age
Apparently,
is so
we're
cute.
going
I'm
to
so jealous right now.
so adorable. And now I'm like, gosh, now we're committed. So this weekend, we're going to figure out how to turn our wonderful wagon into Mac from Cars. So so my son can be Lightning McQueen, because that's the things you do for your kids when they're so excited.
The first 3 years, I was like, okay, what am I going to be? And then you're going to be like whatever goes with my costume. Like, he was like such a fun age. I'm like, okay, I'm going to be Cruella de Vil and you could be a Dalmatian. And like, I was like, every year it was like a theme costume. And now he wants to be his own things, So I have to like negotiate with him and kind of, but he definitely also wanted to be something scary for nighttime. And that was, I don't know if I shared this story. And I asked him and he was like, oh, something scary is like a kidnapper, right? Because I'm going to like kidnap. I'm like, what? But he's going to be a ninja for nighttime. So we're sticking with that. First of all, congratulations on the book. Tell us a little bit about when did you think it was time to put all this knowledge, all this, and I like it because it's kind of like a handbook, like it's very practical. There's a lot of lists, a lot of checks, to go through, and it's just like a great guidance for parents that are really in the thick of the chaotic toddler years.
Thank you. Yes, I've had publishers asking me to write a book since 2019, but I didn't want to just write a book for the sake of writing a book. I really wanted to write a book that made me feel like it was going to make a really big difference for parents. And through the years of having Transforming Toddlerhood, becoming a parent myself, what I realize is that there is so limited time for reading. And when there's a challenge, like the thought of reading a 20 or 25 page chapter, hoping to find an answer, just feels really daunting. And I feel like you never really make it through. So I wanted to write the book that toddler parents truly need. And I'm just receiving the same DMs over and over every day, making me realize that parents are just out there scrolling Instagram and Googling to try to find the answers to their questions, because there's not one place to have them all. So that's why I got the idea for Transforming Toddlerhood book, which is basically like the what to expect for parenting kids ages 1 to 5. It's 45 mini chapters divided into 5 sections where you can find the answers to your questions when they need them most. Whether you're thinking, oh, I feel like yelling and I don't know how to stay calm, or you're not on the same page with your parenting partner and it's a struggle, I have chapters for that. And I also address the toddler brain development, the sensory system, decoding behavior, discipline, and then all the challenges like whining, tantrums, separation anxiety, introducing a new sibling, screens, potty training, sleep, all the things.
All the fun
There's
stuff. We
there's
loved
for
it so
everyone.
much.
Yeah.
It's
All the
interesting.
challenges of toddlerhood.
Why don't we break down what toddlerhood is exactly, right? Because I feel like now that you mentioned 1 through 5, that means okay, so I'm still kind of like at the end of it, right? I'm still about to get out of it because my son's still 5. But I think
Yep.
it's important to identify that season because there's definitely behaviors and developmental milestones and bumps on the road that you will face because you're in that season. And I think it's important because a lot of moms feel isolated. And what happened to me when I found your account, Devon, Devon has almost near 1 million followers on Instagram. But when I went to look at the mutual friends, the people that followed
Every
you,
parent.
all my mom
Yeah.
friends were, I guess, secretly following you, but no one had discussed you to me, right? So it was like this hidden weapon that we had where we did not want to admit that we were struggling with like the tantrums or like the, behavioral stuff. I feel like it's very isolating to be going through those years because you don't want to admit or maybe even look for help because you feel like, okay, is my child the only one that's going through this?
Yes, it can be so challenging. And that one of the biggest questions I get is this normal? Is this normal? And that's also why I included behavior red flags in my book. So parents have some guideposts of like, okay, is this typical for toddlerhood or not? And I'm glad you asked me to define it because if you go out on, Google and start Googling what is toddlerhood, there are so many different answers. And so from a developmental perspective and from a perspective of like being in the trenches of parenting, the way I break it down in the introductory chapters of my book is that ages 1 and 2 are younger toddlers, ages 3 and 4 are older toddlers, and age 5 is transitioning from toddlerhood into the school age years. So here are the biggest differences. When you have 1 and 2 year olds, they are extremely impulsive and they don't have good command of expressive language, meaning they're going to use their behaviors to communicate their feelings, emotions, needs, and their level of brain maturation, all the things. Then, when you have older toddlers, they're still impulsive at 3 and 4, but they have a better command of expressive language, meaning they're starting to tell us things. So sometimes we see a reduction in the big behaviors, but an increase in things like, you're a mean mommy, you're not my friend anymore, I don't like you. You might hear these phrases when your toddler's frustrated, but at its essence, toddlers are still struggling with that impulse control, that emotional regulation that leads to behavior regulation because of their level of brain maturation, which really starts to increase around 3.5 and 4 years old as the starting point. So by about 5 years old, you're going to see children start to have less tantrums, have more conversations with you, and be a lot less impulsive. And so that's how I break down toddlerhood.
Wow, that's super interesting. And can you give us a little bit, like, I'd love to give a little bit of context of like when I want to specifically talk about when you started your community online, what your professional background is. Like, let's take it real back for anybody that maybe isn't like all secretly following your account, like, so we could just kind of lay the foundation here.
Absolutely. So I have a degree in psychology with a focus in child development. And for many, many years, I was a nanny for high profile families all over the world, working with so many different families, so many different dynamics, children with all different types of needs. And then in the middle of that, I actually took a break and I was the executive director of a nonprofit that had an orphanage and a farm in Rwanda. Um, and then I became a professional coach. And so I'm an ICF certified coach as well. And throughout all of this, what I noticed is that there was a lot of communication problems between parents and toddlers where there were like these misconnections where like a toddler would be crying and parents would take it personally or make it think they would think like, oh, why did I come home, or is my toddler like doesn't like me or something like this, when the child was just having a hard time and kind of offloading all their feelings and emotions in that safe space at the end of the day. And so the more I saw these communication challenges and the my own experience of feeling like if a child had quote unquote good behavior, I was doing a good job as a caregiver, and if they had quote unquote bad behavior, then I was doing a bad job as a caregiver. But then I started to realize that all behavior is communication, and when we get curious about what the behavior is trying to tell us, that's how we can truly transform the behavior. So I started Transforming Toddlerhood in 2018 with the mission to dispel the myth that toddlerhood is terrible, because I realized there was not one person at that point on Instagram talking about toddlerhood, which is an extremely challenging developmental period, but also extremely critical in terms of brain development and setting the foundation for emotional health for the rest of your child's life.
Can you talk a little bit more about the brain development part? These are the areas that I'm always so fascinated by. Like, what are kind of the most important parts of brain development during this age period?
Yeah, I think the most important thing to understand about brain development is that your child's level of brain development ties into how you parent, especially around your expectations. Because oftentimes we underestimate a child's physical capabilities. So we do things for them that they could actually do because it's easier and quicker if we do it.
Yeah.
But then we overestimate their social, emotional, impulse control skills. So we often think that a 2 or 3 year old should be able to stop themselves from having a tantrum when they're overwhelmed or have a big disappointment or a big frustration. When, from a brain development perspective, that's not the case, because in the brain, in the lower brain, which I have a whole chapter dedicated to this in my book, this is the part of the brain that is more primitive and develops first. So kids spend a lot of time, young children, in the limbic region of the brain that's responsible for feelings and emotions, also our stress response, that fight or flight. So kids quickly drop down into that area because it is the most mature and kind of like the easiest place for them to be. That being said, the upper brain, which includes the prefrontal cortex, is developing, but at a slower rate, and then starts to speed up around 3.5, 4 years old. That's the part of the brain that's responsible for logic, that's responsible for impulse control, empathy, emotional regulation that leads to behavior regulation, planning. This is why you see toddlers living in the moment, not able to put themselves in other people's shoes, not responding when we come at them with logic, because that's not how their brains work, and really struggling with impulse control. So when we start to understand this, we can start to align how we address specific behaviors to work with our child's development, not against it. And that's our main goal here at Transforming Toddlerhood.
Got it.
What's a good reminder, a message that you tell moms, Devin, during this season? I think we could be very critical with ourselves. And we're constantly thinking, I know this is a myth, that we're going to be judged as a mom based on how your child is behaving or what they're doing, what they're not doing, right? So I think for many moms, they kind of interpret their child as kind of like their resume of like, okay, this is the type of mom that I am. Look at my child. So what's a message, or an encouraging message, I think, for moms that are probably dealing with this right now, that it's not a reflection of the type of mom they are?
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my goodness. And we've all been there, and it is challenging. The first thing I want to say is that we are our own worst critic, right? So we are probably the ones to like jump to tearing ourselves down and, judging ourselves and thinking things are our fault or we're not doing enough. If there is someone else out there putting that on you, in your child, it actually has nothing to do with you and your child. It has to do with that specific person's personality and life experiences, and they're getting triggered because of that. It's actually not because of you and your child. So it's a very important thing to remember, especially during things like public tantrums or things of that nature. And so what I want to say in terms of like encouragement is that first of all, it's not your job to control your child or to make your child happy, because you can't control your child's feelings and emotions. You can't control their behavior. You can influence them, and you can have positive influence and negative influence. And that positive influence is what creates connection and cooperation. But at the same time, you don't have to do it perfectly, because there's a very big gift in being an imperfect parent. There's a very, very big gift whenever you mess up and you own it and you try again. You model the skills of repairing the relationship. You model the skills of grounding yourself and calming down. Every time you do this, you tell your child it's okay to be a human being, and your child sees you and learns these skills that they're going to carry them through the rest of their lives.
Yeah.
Karen and I are nodding the whole
no,
time. If
that
you're listening to this, we're like,
yeah, this part
like,
is
what's
this is
that?
one of my absolute favorite concepts in parenting, and it's something that I like. I love what you were saying so much because I find it to be like the second that you process that and really kind of act in that way, it changes the approach, I think, a lot of times for us as parents. I have a question for you. It's a little bit more personal. So, did anything change for you in your own experience with your child, like as you start navigating the things that you've learned about, that you are skilled in, as you experience it in real life with your own son? How, have you had any learnings, or has anything changed for you?
Yeah, well, so many things. One thing I would say is that we all have an idea of what parenthood is going to look like before going into it. And then this child arrives, and this unique child that we can't control who they are and, what their experience is, in terms of just the things that happen in life, as that unique individual. And so, things often end up looking much different than we expected. And so I think that there's like a calibration there of like envisioning one way things are going to be when I had a baby, and then like the reality that I had a child that, was very colicky and had eczema and sound sensitivities and all kinds of things. And it's like, okay, I think parenthood is a lot of recalibration, constantly
Yeah.
recalibrating our expectations with reality. And I think the other thing is that it really grew my empathy, to see like this little kiddo that, was trying so hard, but you know, the moments where he might have bit me or hit me or didn't listen was his way of not being able to cope and not having better tools. So it really like broke open my empathy, but at the same time, it's so hard to hear your child cry and be upset, and there's so many moments that I just want to give in, just like fine, get a toy from the Target shelf or whatever the thing is to like
Yeah.
make it stop. I notice that coming up in me, and so I have so much empathy for all the parents out there that have these same things coming up, and sometimes you just say, okay, fine, right? And you give in because it is really, really hard to hear your child cry, to hear your child be upset. And we just want to make our kids happy. So I'm constantly like reminding myself it's not my job to make my child happy. It's my job to, keep my child healthy and safe and to have my child feel seen and heard. But that doesn't mean giving him everything he wants every second. But it's hard, right, to have that
Yeah.
consistency as a parent.
It must be so crazy for you, given that, like, this is obviously something you're so well versed in and that you talk about with other people all the time and with your community, but then you're living it and you're like, like you have to remind yourself
Yeah.
of your own narrative of what you know. That must be super challenging.
Absolutely. I mean, and I think that's the thing is like we just expect that one day we're going to wake up and we're just going to get it and we don't have to think about it anymore. And I think that's the hardest thing about parenting is like the job is never done, or like the work, especially the internal work, is never done. It's always something that we have to, continue on with because we're all human beings with our own feelings, emotions, and needs that are going to come up. And some days we're more resourced and other days we're under resourced. And so just knowing that we're human, we're not going to do things perfectly, and that parenting the way we envision takes practice, takes commitment, it takes falling down and picking ourselves back up, and okay. That is absolutely
And
okay. It
I
doesn't
also
mean you're
think
failing.
those when we've spoken about this, like those moments of like true breakdown, like when my son has lost it and I have lost it at the same time, I really has think has been one of the most bonding and special connection moments that we've had because we really were like so
Together.
vulnerable and
Yeah.
so transparent, and we're just like in such a like broken place. And I was like, I'm sorry. He's like, oh, well, I'm sorry. And it really helped us like make a safe space and be, direct about what upset us to that point, and gave us a chance to rebuild and apologize and talk about it. And for me, it was a
Yeah.
big opportunity to build that, right, to strengthen that connection.
Yeah, absolutely. I always say that these moments are not problems to be solved, but like opportunities to learn and grow for both us and our children.
Even though
Yeah.
the other day he did, now that you mentioned the 5-year-old, oh my God, he spoke to me because he got so upset. I forgot, I don't even know what he was upset about. I think it was about like not finding his like slippers. I don't know, something silly. He was so angry and he was like, and you're not my mommy anymore, and I'm not your baby anymore, and you go find a new baby. I'm like, it was like so like targeted and so like it was tough. I was
Yeah.
like, I'm like, you don't mean what you're saying. He's like, no, I do mean what I'm saying. I was like, and then he came back around and he was like, I'm sorry, you're still my mommy. I'm like, yes, of course I'm still your mommy. Like, and he's like, and you're the best. And you're like, and then he goes, and we're so lucky that you're my mommy and that I'm your baby, right? Like, I'm like, yes, you're right. Like, what are the odds? Like, we are lucky that we have each other. But yeah, he was like, it was the first time that he was like really like hurtful. It hurt me.
Yeah. Yes, and this is so common, right? And this happens, and parents all of a sudden are like, "Oh my gosh, my child's being rude. They can't talk to me like that," or like feel super hurt, which all of our feelings and emotions are completely valid. And this is why I have a whole chapter dedicated to my book on hurtful words, to teach parents how to translate it. But I just love this example because in this moment, one way to react is saying like, "You don't talk to me like that. That's rude. You need to respect me," something like this, like going to a lecture and using like shame, blame, guilt, judgment, and fear to try to get back on top and control the situation. If you do that, then you don't have the opportunity for learning, right? So where your son calmed down, got re-regulated, and then you can talk about it. Like sometimes we get upset and say things we don't mean, and then we have to come back and repair the relationship. And I accept your apology. I love you so much. And next time you're feeling this way, what are some things that you could do to have it go differently? And then talk about it and practice it, right? Because that's how you build, that's how your child builds the skills they need to be successful in life.
Yeah. I think one of the hardest parts about parenting overall, there's two pieces of what I think. One is the fact that I think once you finally are at a stage where where you're like, man, I really figured out this age. Like I literally feel like you wake up the next day and like we've moved on to something else and you're like, this is a new challenge. This is a new dynamic. It constantly is evolving. That's one part. And then the second part is that no one really realizes until you're in it that, or and some people don't even have this level of awareness sometimes, but like so much of the work of parenting is almost like of yourself, like reassessing your own emotions, your traumas, your beliefs, or your
Yeah.
bad habits, all of that. There's such a huge element of self-reflection, personal growth, that if you don't work on that, because your kids will make you realize it, if you don't work on that, I mean, such a huge part of parenting well, I think is working on yourself as well.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what makes parenting so hard, right? It's because we are reparenting ourselves at the same time as parenting our children, and it's going to get messy and it's not going to be linear. But for those who are willing to practice, not get it right, just practice and make progress, and keep a growth mindset, knowing that growth is possible, there's going to be so many rewards as your child grows up. And I think the biggest thing is that in these moments, when the behavior is always changing, that's the challenge. If we only address the behavior on the surface,
Yeah.
then the behavior is always just going to keep changing and new behavior is going to come up. But whenever we're coming from this place of connection while also setting limits and following through and teaching skills, this is what I call developmentally smart discipline, then we learn these frameworks that we can apply to any situation, no matter what the behavior is. So I talk about all of these frameworks in my book, and how to go through that recipe for developmentally smart discipline. And then we become more confident because we know it's not just about controlling the behaviors or making behaviors disappear. It's about working with your child to grow and learn. And once you learn the frameworks, it all becomes a lot easier.
Mm.
I also think it's what's good guidance, Devin, for. I also think and again, not being in denial, but I think it was more like seeing the positive of like a little bit of the chaos, right? Because I remember one time someone was mentioning, oh, well, I don't even think it was her own child, it was someone's child. They're always like so well behaved and they're like, so quiet and they're just like always sitting down. And in my mind, I'm like, I like that my child is a little chaotic sometimes, right? So I'm like, maybe changing the perspective, like, this is what a healthy, emotionally, like, you know what I mean? Like, not to look at it from a negative way. Like, how important is, or what guidance can you share with us in terms of like the way that we look at this season and certain behaviors and certain tantrums and certain things as something positive?
Yes. Well, I think oh my gosh, this is a lot of what my work is about and my book is about is like, how can we shift our mindset? Because if we look at behavior as bad, then we're going to get bogged down with
Yeah.
it, right? Where we want to shift our mindset to my child's having a hard time and needs support, right? And that's going to change how we interact. Or instead of saying, oh, what punishment should I give my child for this? Saying, oh, what support or what
Yeah.
skill does my child need to be successful here? So when we can start shifting our mindset, things really do get a lot easier. But also, in one of the introductory chapters of my book, I actually have a list of reasons to love the toddler years. And so it's important to focus on some of the great things that happen. Like, yes, the tantrums all serve a purpose, right? Like, if your child never had a tantrum, they'd never learn that, they'd never grow that emotional resilience, they'd never learn regulation skills, and they wouldn't know what to do whenever they came up against, challenges later in life. So, of course, this development in the typical behavior that children have with tantrums, crying, whining, all of this, it all serves a greater developmental purpose. But still, sometimes that's hard to swallow, right? Because it's still challenging. So we have to start shifting our focus to the things that are positive, like all the firsts that our children get to experience, and how enthusiastic they are, and how they live just in the present moment. When we can start looking for the good, when we can look for what's going well and see it and acknowledge it out loud, we're not only training our brains to look at the positive, and what we focus on grows. We'll notice more and more of it because it's probably there. We just oftentimes don't see it because in the moments where things are going well, we're just kind of like, oh, okay, right? We kind of sit back instead of acknowledging it. And when our children hear us acknowledging it, that's when they notice we're paying attention to the positive, and they're going to be more likely to have that behavior in the future because they know we're paying attention in those moments.
I was so emotional yesterday. So my son finally told me that he did not want. We have built this little house that he has in his backyard. He probably got it, I want to say Christmas, when he was like 2.5 years old. And he had so much fun with the little house, and he would like go in and out and just like be so present every time. He would like make pretend lunches for us and like had all his little tools inside. So yesterday I posted a picture of the house. I did a video for my neighborhood chat. I was like, hey, if anyone wants it, they could pick it up. Like, he's over it. He doesn't want it anymore. And I was like, and then I found old pictures of him in the little house. Again, like I realized such precious years, like 2.5. Like I love those years so much. I'm like getting and he was so independent, but they're so little, and it's like such a like tough season for them too, right? Because they kind of look a little bit bigger because, again, he's opening his little house and sitting inside and all these cute videos, but they're still babies and they still need so much support from us. Anyway, so I just got emotional. I love those years.
Yeah, me too. I really feel you because, my son turned 3 in July, and I think the 2 weeks leading up to his birthday and the 2 weeks after, I think I cried almost every evening. I was like, I said to my husband, he's gonna leave us soon. And he's like, my husband's like, that's in 15 years. I'm like, it's gonna feel like 3 years.
It's tough.
Right? Because these years are precious, and there are so many positive things, and they're absolutely challenging too. So we get to choose on a daily basis how we're going to orient our minds and our brains and what we're going to choose to focus on, because that's a choice we actually have. And while it's not an easy choice to make sometimes, the more we can practice making that choice, the more joy we can experience during these years that can feel like a roller coaster.
Yeah. everyone always said, I mean, like these years were particularly challenging for me. I had a pretty hard time with it. And now I'm entering this like new era that I'm loving so much. And I know has other,
What way to tell your stuff for you specifically? Was it tantrums, which is sleep? What was it? It was
I mean, I think it was, I think based related to my earlier point, I think it was a lot of like battling my own emotions while trying to keep her, what you said, like in control, when realizing that it wasn't really about that. It was like almost like she and I just really like power trip left and right, versus trying to like break it down and really focus on connection, like you said. Things that I think it took me a little bit longer to learn how to navigate that. And right now, like I said, she's 6, and so we're in this very different dynamic where there's so much communication. Like we wake up and we talk before she goes to sleep. She tells me all these stories left and right, and it's a time where I think I'm right now going through what you guys were referring to before. Like right now, I'm already like mourning in real time that this season is going to be short, because after this, I think would come like the preteen years where their external universe becomes so much more important to them than the universe that we have together. Um, and I'm already like, so like every day that I have any little moment with her, I'm like, "Ah, lock it. Like I want to like keep it in a little jar and be like, I keep this for the two of us," because she's into like, like wanting to match together or whatever. Like this morning I was leaving the house and again she's like, "Mommy, you look so nice today." And I'm like, okay. Versus like what's coming after, which I don't know what it is, but my friends that have 12-year-olds, 11-year-olds, I'm like, it's not as, it's more complex. So, yeah, I'm feeling that.
Yeah, there's such a big shift. And one thing that's really interesting is that the teen years and the preteen years and the toddler years have a lot of crossover in terms of the teen years are another big time in brain development where a lot of pruning happens in the brain. And it's also another big period of independence, right? And individualization. And so what's amazing is that when we put in the extra effort in the toddler years to really lay that foundation and build up the parent-child relationship, the teen years can become a lot easier because we've built that relationship, we've created that connection, but we've also set limits and followed through. And so it creates a nice foundation and it can make the teen years a lot easier. And a lot of people jokingly call it, the second toddlerhood.
Oh, man.
what do we elaborate a little bit
Yeah.
on that? Because I think it's important to highlight the importance of these years in terms of foundation and developmental stuff that they're gonna need in the future, right? Because I think maybe some moms are just kind of rushing through it and be like, oh, I just want to get out of this season. I just want to like him to be like 3 and 4 and 5, and like, why is it so important to really take the time to set that foundation, to give them the tools they need? That they're not just babies are going through this tantrums, right? That there's meaning behind everything and there's purpose behind what we're doing and working on during this season.
Yes, because as we said before, like they're growing and changing every day. So there can be a part of us just like, oh, they're growing and changing every day. They're going to grow out of this, right? And then it's going to be fine. But here's the thing. If we're constantly using shame, blame, guilt, judgment, and fear as a parenting tactic to try to control our children and control their behavior, is going to slowly erode the parent-child relationship. And if you have a strong-willed child, it's going to make them push against you more. If you have a more like mild-mannered child, then they're going to turn inward and do more people pleasing at the expense of their own feelings and emotions. And so it's just so important, right? But at the same time, we don't want to go to the other end of the spectrum where children are just running the show and we never set any limits and follow through, because then we're going to have older children that, have way too much power, and then they won't know what it's like to run into a limit, and that's going to cause a lot of issues as well. And so that's why I talk about this recipe for developmentally smart discipline and really break it down chapter by chapter in my book, because when we can create connection, set limits and follow through, and teach skills, this is the recipe that sets us up for the most success, right? To really create that foundation where children are learning, emotional regulation skills, when they're learning conflict resolution skills, when they're learning problem solving skills, but within the container that we create and with our guidance, it's going to support them. Because yes, we want to support our kids in becoming independent, but parenting is a relationship. We want to do this through partnership where we're in charge, but not no matter what we try to convince ourselves otherwise, control truly is an illusion. And once you have a 10-year-old, your kids will show you, hey, I'm bigger, stronger now. You can't control me. So if you haven't set the foundation of the relationship for that connection, but also your child's used to you setting limits and following through, it's going to be much, much harder in the teen years.
Yeah.
It's also so hard to navigate. Sometimes it was happening with me, Devon, is every time he's gonna tell me something, like, he missed something he did that he thinks is bad. He like, you're gonna be so mad, and he like struggles. He's like, you're gonna be so. I don't know where he's gotten this thing. I'm like, first of all, I never really get that mad. I'm not like, but like even the idea, like for him to even have that idea, the thought of like, I don't want to tell you this because I know your reaction is going to be that you're gonna be mad. And so again, I don't know if it's coming like. He doesn't want me to be disappointed. He doesn't want me to be sad. Because sometimes I'd be like, I'm not mad, babe, but I'm a little sad that this happened, So I don't know how much weight should we put on our feelings and how we're feeling when it comes to like what they've done, like their behavior.
Yeah, this is such a great example. And I would say the really great news here is that your son's telling you all of this, right? Because he could just be keeping this all like internal and you'd never
Yeah,
know.
and you know
But
what?
he's telling you.
I always celebrate. Thank you so much for telling me. There's no secrets with mom.
Yes,
Like,
it's amazing.
thank you. But I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm kind of like, okay, let me breathe, and I don't know how to handle this. But I initially don't want him to like hesitate telling me because he thinks I'm going to be either mad or sad, right? Like,
Yep. Yep. So then you can start addressing this with your son. So I'll tell you something you can do with your son, and then I'll tell you something like just in the other moments that might be helpful. So something you can do with your son is just say something like, thank you so much for telling me. I really appreciate, you can tell me anything. I'm a human being, and human beings have feelings and emotions. And sometimes I might have a big reaction and I might feel sad or disappointed or upset. But that doesn't mean that you're a bad person. And you can always tell me anything because I love you no matter what. So it's about giving reassurance. It's about helping your child understand, like help them process what's going on, and then giving them that reassurance. And then the more you practice that and the more you show him that, then the better and better it will get. So just because a child's saying that, it's like actually a huge gift, because then you have stuff to work with. So then you just work on creating the connection and giving that love and reassurance. And then say in the moment, like something's happening and you're feeling frustrated or disappointed or something, you could say something with like an I statement. So you can say, I am feeling frustrated, or I am feeling disappointed because I thought things were going to go differently. Right. So when you take ownership of your feelings and emotions, but then also say to your son, like, you made a mistake. I understand. And let's figure out what to do about this. And you problem solve together. Now, instead of a child feeling like they might get in trouble, you're normalizing making mistakes and then kind of cleaning up the mess, whatever the mistake is. How do you, clean it up afterwards? So
Nice.
I love that.
This was so great, Devon. Thank you so much. Can you remind everybody the best way to connect with you and information on your book, please?
Yes, absolutely. So you can find my book wherever books are sold, at your most likely your local Barnes and Noble or from Amazon, or you can go to transformingtoddlerhood.com/book. And if you want to connect with me and continue the conversation, you can find me at Transforming Toddlerhood on Instagram and send me a DM, and I'd love to connect with you and continue the conversation.
You're amazing, Devon. Thank you so much, and congratulations again.
Yes, congrats. Thank you.
Thank you.